Hello trumpet players. So I've been making a whole bunch of these videos because I've got a bunch of gigs, right? But I've been very uncertain about whether I'm going to post them ever or not. And part of that is because I don't know. It's good for me to do these. I've realized that doing these videos kind of puts me on the spots. But a lot of it is improvised, and I say stuff and people could come back later and say, well, you said this and you said that, and it just doesn't make sense to put all of it up, right? But this one will go up right away, and it's because this is an answer. I'm so busy right now, I can't do like a proper sit down at home, make a response video, and it's actually necessary. So I thought I would do this now, and I'm early to a gig, very, very early, by the way. I went to the location of the gig, which is in the River Oaks area. That's like one of the high-end areas in the Houston city area. And because it's in a residential area, I had to find some place to park and do this video because it was just kind of creepy doing that with mansions around me, right? So I'm now on the corner, for those of you who live in Houston, of Kirby. That's Kirby going that way, and Westheimer going that way. There's a bakery right there. Now, I try to stay away from gluten nowadays, and I'm trying right now not to do processed carbs. That's how I'm saying it, processed carbs. So no sugars, no refined flours and stuff like that. So that place is off limits, but I love that place right there. What's it called? Stone Mill Bakers. Wonderful. Anyway, so this is where I am right now. 2 hours, actually now at this point, because it took me a while to find this place to sit, an hour and a half early to the gig. And let me tell you what we're talking about. The original video I wanted to do right now was a response to somebody who's asking about lip buzz. They say they've watched my videos and it doesn't. Now I'm under the assumption that this person is in some sort of beginning band because they said that they are doing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in front of a group. And here's the thing, is the last comment I got from this person said, I sound bad and it's because I don't buzz right. And the problem is, well, the question I have for you is, what makes you think that? Where do people get this? And this is why I'm making the video. Where do people get that? So we're going to start with one statement. In fact, this will probably be the name of the video. Lip buzz is not a prerequisite to playing the trumpet. You do not have to get a good lip buzz to get a good sound. There are way, way too many great players out there who get wonderful sounds and don't do lip buzz at all. For all I know, can't do lip buzz. We don't do lip buzz so that we get a better sound. That's a misconception. At least within my school of the trumpet the Eddie Lewis Trumpet School. I can't speak for anybody else, but within the Eddie Lewis Trumpet School, it's not that direct. The benefits you get are not that direct. Do this and you'll get a good sound. That's not how lip buzz works. Lip buzz, for me, my understanding of how lip buzz works is that when you do the lip buzz, you learn more about how trumpet playing works. And when I say learn, I don't mean learn in a conscious sense. I mean learn in a subconscious sense. And you can go years with getting a bad sound on a lip buzz and still get benefit from doing the lip buzz now, even though getting a good sound on a lip buzz is something that might not happen 5 years from now. So please do not think that you have to somehow first get a good lip buzz first, and then that will somehow immediately turn into a good sound. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So this brings up a few different issues that I want to talk about. Because now part of the problem is, so there's different aspects to this person's question, right? So I addressed the first one because I'm assuming it's a guy for some reason. Maybe not a guy, a girl. I shouldn't have said that. I can't remember the name. So maybe it was a girl, like Clarissa or something like that. Anyway, so if if you are a girl, I apologize for assuming you were a guy. For some reason, I don't know. Anyway, so so that's the first part of the question that I wanted to deal with, is you don't have to get a good lip buzz now before you can sound good in public on the trumpet. Now, addressing the issue of why are you getting a bad sound, why are you not doing well on the lip buzz? Which I'm assuming the reason you know that you're not doing well is because of the sound. Okay? I can't tell you that. And you know what this reminds me of? You know, when you read The Hobbit, and if you haven't read The Hobbit, I strongly encourage you to read The Hobbit, because there's like stuff. First of all, it's a great book. If you don't read books, watch the movie. There's plenty of cartoon versions of the movie, and now there's that the people that made those Lord of the Rings movies, they made a version of it too. Okay, but anyway, there's a scene in The Hobbit where the main character, I think it's Frodo, or is it Bilbo? I always get the two mixed up. I'm very horrible with names. Whoever the one is in the Hobbit, I think it's Bilbo. Bilbo Baggins has gotten separated from the rest of the team. He falls down on his hand, and his hand lands on a ring, and the ring goes onto his hand. He goes invisible, and he says, "Hey, that's handy." He sticks it in his pocket. Then he makes his way down to where he meets another character. His name is Gollum. And Gollum is like a ruthless guy that eats people. In fact, he's so twisted that he doesn't even look like a person anymore. He looks like some creature. And the two of them get into this match where they, what do you call that? Riddles. They try to outwit each other with the riddles. And they have good ones. I'm not very good with riddles, so I wouldn't have been able to figure those out. Right? I think riddles are an old, lost form of entertainment. We have now Game Boy and stuff like that, right? Our phones now and stuff like that. So kids doing riddles for each other, I think that's a lost art. But yeah, they start having this back and forth, and then the last riddle, Bilbo asks him the final riddle. What do I have in my pocket? And Gollum gets all upset. He says, that's not fair. Right? How am I supposed to know what you have in your pocket? And to me, that story, that part of the whole Hobbit story, I'm always reminded of that when people express their frustration in the form of questions about Trumpet. They want me to tell them. So in this case, someone says, why am I not getting the lip buzz right? And I don't think there's any difference between that and Bilbo Baggins asking, what's in my pocket? There's no way I can tell you why you're not getting the lip buzz right. If I don't have a recording of you, if I don't have maybe some video, now I'm assuming if this person is in a beginning band, that he or she, I think it's a she, is probably a minor. So I don't want you sending me video of you as a minor. That's crossing some lines that I don't want to cross, okay? But what you could do is maybe with your parents' permission. You know, every time I've said this, every time I've told a minor, yes, send me a video, make sure your parents are in the video. Nobody's ever done it. But I won't take a video of a minor if the parents aren't in the video. And it doesn't have to be, you know, ideally a video like that would be unlisted so that I could see it, but it wouldn't come up on any search engines or anything like that. It's just a way for me to see what you're doing so I can answer your question. And hear what you're doing so I can answer your question. But without that, now ideally, if you lived in Houston, you should come. And I offer one free lesson to everybody. Did you not know that? In fact, I offer one free lesson to people via Skype too. If you want to have one free lesson. Now I can't always fit it in. So if I'm having a busy week, you can't have your free lesson that week. But it's something I offer. Originally it was for the sake of checking out some of the students, make sure, because I can't just take every student right now. I can't do that. There are some students, like for example, one of the reasons why we have that first free lesson is to see if you will show up. If I offer you a free lesson, you don't show up, well, I'm not out of money. It pisses me off if for your first lesson that you were supposed to pay for, you don't show up. Well, this way I'm not out of anything, and I know not to hire you as a student. Not hire, you know what I mean, to accept you as a student. And it's not just that, like if you come in and you've got a foul mouth, I'm not teaching you. So that free lesson is not just so you can check me out. Well, it's part of that too. But it's also so I can check you out and see if I even want to teach you. And I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but I don't have a lot of time for, now I have time in the schedule for new students. Don't get me wrong. It's just that 1 week to the next is kind of crazy. That's the thing about living this life, is that no week from 1 week to the next is the same. So for me to put someone in a permanent spot, like give you a weekly lesson, I don't have as many of those spots to pass out. And I don't want to give those spots to people who shouldn't have them. Anyway, so that's a little bit of a side tangent. My point is, ideally, the best thing is to come in and take a lesson. And I can work with you. You could come in and say, Mr. Lewis, this is what I want to do today. I want to get this buzz thing going right. Well, yes, come on in. We'll have a lip buzz lesson for free. The first one's free, right? Come on in. We'll have a lip buzz lesson. It's quite possible that by the end of the lesson, you might be able to do a lip buzz. I can't promise it because I do have some students that still to this day can't do a proper lip buzz. Guess what? Those students play great, by the way. And I'm not ashamed to say that they can't do lip buzz because they play great. Okay? Which demonstrates the point I was making. You don't have to be a good lip buzzer to be a good trumpet player. We do the lip buzz because over time, it's not an immediate thing, over time, a period of years of doing lip buzz as your first thing every day leads to some phenomenal trumpet playing. That's why we do it, because of what it does to your brain. Okay? So, and if anybody says otherwise, I simply just don't agree with them. I simply just don't. And the reason why is because, what if the reason why you sound bad... Now, let's back up a little bit. I believe that there are more than 1,000 different reasons why you could have problems playing the trumpet. Like, let's say your problem is getting a good sound. Perhaps, so let's say so you have trouble getting a good sound. There could be 1,000 reasons why you get a bad sound. That's part of my job in your lesson. It could be the mouthpiece is too big. It could be the mouthpiece is too small. It could be your horn. It could be that you've never listened to trumpet music before. It could be that you have perpetually chapped lips. It could be, I had one student one time. It was the most bizarre thing I ever saw. Now this was in the late 80s. She played the trumpet between the lip and the tongue. She was buzzing like this. Every time I demonstrate that. And it was so bizarre, right? Because she told me all those years. I think she had been playing for 2 years by that time. And she said all that time people talking about tonguing, and she didn't know what they were talking about. Because, right, if you're using your tongue as the bottom lip, then there's nothing there to tongue with, right? And yes, she had a bizarre sound. Okay? There's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might have a bad sound. Now, of course, one of them could be that you're not doing it right. But what I've seen more in my career is students that were doing everything right, but they were doing this one thing. Sometimes two things, but usually just one thing that was causing them to have a bad sound. Sometimes you have a bad sound because you're trying to put the mouthpiece dead center, like some of the band directors tell you, dead center, right? And your teeth just don't accommodate that. And yes, you're going to get a bad sound. I had one student that in his elementary band, he was an extreme upstream player. And what that means is, as you play, the horn is pointing up, right? And this band director, his junior high band director, didn't want him to have his horn pointing up like that. But the only way he could play with it pointing down was to scrunch his neck like that. And then bam, he had a horrible sound. Well, because all the angles are wrong. Wrong for him. You see what I'm saying? So how am I to know if you say, Mr. Lewis, and right now we're talking about sound, right? But it's everything on the trumpet's like that. So how am I to know when you ask me a question, an open-ended question like that, why can't I get the lip buzz? Well, like I said, that's just like saying, what's in my pocket? I don't know what's in your pocket. How am I supposed to know what's in your pocket? It's the same exact thing, right? I don't know what you're doing with your lips. I don't have video. I don't have a recording. I don't have, you haven't told me anything about your practice habits. And this is what I think is so bizarre about these trumpet forums, because someone will type a one-sentence question, right? And without revealing anything about that person. And all these experts jump on that. And this is what I've been telling people. Those experts know so much about you that they're going to tell you exactly what's wrong. Only do they really? Obviously the answer is no, they don't. But to the casual student who's going through these problems, I think it's possible that they go with the person that sounds like they really know what they're talking about, when in reality they can't possibly know what they're talking about because they don't know anything about you. You go online and you ask somebody a question, nobody knows what you have in your pocket. So just because I have the guts to tell you I don't know what you have in your pocket, right? And if those guys are foolish enough to say, well, I know exactly what you have in your pocket, why would you go with their advice? Those would be precisely the people I would not go with. And this brings me to another thing that made me think, well, you know what, I really need to make this video now, because part 2 of this is I got another comment on the lip bend thing. And this guy is one of my regulars. And when I say regular, I mean someone I know that I think he's subscribed to my blog and probably has been for a while, if I'm not mistaken. And he makes comments on my videos and stuff like that. So you know, and I appreciate hearing from people like that. But he didn't like my lip bend video because I didn't tell anybody in the video precisely how to do a lip bend. But it's the same thing again. It's the same thing again. I can't give you precise information about how you do a lip bend, because let me explain this a little bit. This is something I learned from Bob Finley's book, okay? And it's some people might think that I'm stretching this a little bit in my application, okay? But Bob Finley helped me have the underlying philosophy that leads to this kind of understanding. Bob Finley talks about a balance between air and resistance. That's the first balance. But within the resistance side, there are 7 sources that he points out, 7 sources of balance of resistance that must balance within each other. I mean, within the side of resistance. So, for example, if you use more air, you have to back off on the resistance to get the same note. That kind of thing. That's what we mean by balance. If you back off on the air to get the same note, then you have to increase the resistance. That kind of thing. Well, the same thing is true within the resistance. If you use a high tongue arch, a really, really high tongue arch, then the other sources, like, for example, the embouchure stiffness, needs to open up a little bit. Now, I think over the years, I've developed somewhat of a well-rounded resistance balance for myself, but I can change that to get different sound. Like if I need more of a lead sound, I can manipulate those balances a little bit to bring out more of a lead sound. Okay, but here's what this does to the teaching, is that each person that comes in is using a different balance of those things. Some people use more air, some people use less air. Some people use more resistance, some people use less resistance. Some people use no tongue arch whatsoever. Now you tell me, if your tongue is already all the way down and I tell you that the way you do a lip bend is to pull the tongue down, how is that going to help you? That's not going to help you at all. I actually have a friend, and I didn't want to say this. In the lip bend video, I mentioned this friend, but I didn't say how he was very, very different from me. I just mentioned that he was very different from me. He tells me, and I have no reason to disbelieve him because it makes sense according to the way that Bob Finley describes this, right? He said he uses his air to bend the note. Now, if you play the way I do, that would never work. Do you understand that? If you play the way I do, using your air to bend the note is not going to work. He goes flat with his air, he says. Now, what he might mean by that, who knows, is that he might open his throat, but I don't think so. I think what he's talking about is precisely what he says. I think he flattens the air, and that's how he gets the note to come down. But you can use any one of those. Okay, so not the two resistances that are set like the horn. You can't use those. And there's probably more to it than just this, by the way. But the other 5 sources of resistance can be used. You just open the resistance up, and that brings the pitch down. Now, here's the thing. Do you really need to know all that? It's nice to know. If you want to know that kind of stuff, I say, don't waste your time with my videos. Go buy the Bob Finley book. I say that. It's not... I think it's out of print now, if I'm not mistaken. Last time I told this to a student, he looked on Amazon, and Amazon said they had the thing on there, but it was not in stock. So there's a chance the Bob Finley book is not in print. So, but yeah. So, but I would suggest try to find it somewhere. If you're into that kind of thing, I'm not going to tell you how you need to do a lip bend. I'm not going to tell you how you need to do the lip buzz. If you haven't been able to use the concepts that I give you and the exercises that I give you, if those haven't worked for you, I will not go that extra mile. I shouldn't call it extra mile because that's like a good thing. I will not try to fill in the blanks with stuff that I know might not be true. I consider that to be extremely important. I won't do that. Okay? Now, what's the moral of the story here? The moral of the story here is that the concepts, there's two things that are going on with my teaching, okay? One is the concepts, the philosophies, and stuff like that. The longer you listen to my stuff, the more these concepts and philosophies start to make sense. But then I also give you exercises. Most of them are in my books, and I apologize for that. You would have to buy them. But I give you exercises that put the stuff right there in front of you, physically in front of you. So that in combination with the concepts, the way your mind is wired and all that stuff, the light goes off. And you don't have to know. You know, when I started playing lead, when I first started playing all that high note stuff, it was on a huge mouthpiece. Huge. The biggest mouthpiece I've ever played on. I missed that mouthpiece. One of my students stole it. That's a long story. It was a rare mouthpiece. I called the company that made it after the student stole it, said I wanted the replacement. They said, we don't have a clue what you're talking about. So that was a sad, sad day. It's the same mouthpiece that I played on the Tom Borling Bebop Band album. You look that up. Tom Borling, Borling, Bebop Band. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. That's the mouthpiece I played on that. It was such a lovely mouthpiece. I missed that mouthpiece. The mouthpiece I have now is kind of close. Anyway, so my point is, I forgot what when I first started playing high, it was on that mouthpiece. It's like as deep as a French horn mouthpiece. And what happened was, this was long before I got the Bob Finley book, that deep mouthpiece forced me to rise the arch of my tongue to compensate for the depth of the mouthpiece. That's that balance Finley's talking about. I did it naturally. I didn't find it something in some book somewhere that says raise the arch in your mouth. Because I was doing my exercises. By the way, my exercises, I wrote those exercises in 1985. Now, the books I publish now are variations of the original exercise. But the original exercises were written, composed in 1985. I've been doing them ever since. And I believe that by doing my daily routines, any of them, the Daily Routines book, this Chops Express book, or my Trumpet Chops series now that's coming out, I've got 3 from the series now. By doing those on a regular daily basis, you're confronting these things. And I think what happened for me was I learned about this balance intrinsically before I read the book. And having this huge, deep mouthpiece and then going through these exercises daily forced me to do those adjustments that I know now. So now that I've been doing it for so long, I can actually do it consciously too. But when I first started doing all that high note stuff, my tongue just went to where it needed to go. I didn't need anybody to tell me. And the reason why the books are like this, there's a reason why, okay? When I lived in El Paso, This is back before internet. This is when a long distance phone call could like an hour long distance phone call was over $100, and I just couldn't afford. People back in those days were doing phone lessons. They would call up their favorite teacher and have a phone lesson. And I couldn't do that. I was cut off from the world, and not to put down the guys had available to me in El Paso. It's just they didn't know this stuff. And I went into designing these materials with the knowledge that I didn't know. And that's what made them work. I used common sense. Okay, I shouldn't say that. I actually believe today that it was also divine inspiration. I actually truly believe that, because there's no way. I wasn't that smart. I was actually kind of a stupid punk when I was in my 20s. So how I came up with this stuff, there had to be at least a seed of divine inspiration there. Okay, but still, okay, so but the main point here is that I knew that I didn't know. And so I fashioned the routine in a way that I didn't have to know. That's why the routines work. Not because I'm some sort of expert, not because I heard from some expert somewhere, but simply because I was cut off from all the experts. That's why my books work. It's because you go into it knowing that you don't know. Now, I do remember from those days, I remember saying to myself, in fact, I had a journal back then. I burned all of them. I don't know why I did that. Actually, I do know why, but it was stupid. I wrote in my journal, I said that if I were to do this every day, I don't know if I used the word confront, but the idea of confronting those physical issues on a daily basis, I knew something would click. And that's the part that I think was divine, is that knowledge, not the hope. It wasn't hope. I knew deep down that if I did these exercises in this order, that even without some expert telling me about tongue arch, it wasn't until I was in my 40s, 20 years later, that I got the Bob Finley book, and the Bob Finley book explained everything that I was doing and why it was working. All of the rest of that time, shooting in the dark, so to speak. Speaking of dark, it's pretty dark now, huh? And I want you guys to understand this. I want you to understand. This is what helps you get this stuff going. It's not, nobody can tell you precisely what you need to do. All they can tell you, and even that, they can't tell you what they do either, because it's all internal, and they can only tell you what it feels like they do. And that's the problem, isn't it? If you take what they feel like they do and apply it and make yourself feel like you do, make yourself feel that way, how do you know that that's producing the same results? You don't know that. I said in my response to this guy, my regular, I'm calling him my regular because I don't want to mention his name in case, I don't want to, I'm not being confrontational. I just want to make this clear, okay? But I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting him down or anything like that. I'm not. what I want here is to make it clear just how complicated these kinds of answers are. It's not clear cut. And I am concerned for anybody that believes the so-called experts when you ask them a question with 5 words in it, and they now from that question give you a definitive answer. Don't trust those people. I promise you. Now, what might happen, this is what I think happens, is depending on the type of player you are, it might work. Because if they're exactly the same kind of player as you are, which I shouldn't say exactly, but if they're the same as you in regards to whatever it is that you're struggling with. Check the time quickly here. If they're the same as you in that regard, then what they say might work. But the variations out there, how often have I got emails and comments from people who said, I've been struggling with this for years. You're the first one to say something that made sense. Okay? I get this all the time, and this is common because different people play different ways, and they just happen to find my way. Right? Now, what I like to do is help everybody be more, in that regard, I'm not telling you to not listen to what they say. I'm saying listen to it with a grain of salt. Everything you hear about how each of these people plays is valuable. But it's only valuable in that it gives you one small piece of the grand puzzle, and you are only one piece in that huge puzzle, and the fact that your piece and his piece may or may not line up is significant. It wasn't that his information was wrong, it's that his information doesn't work for you. I've been saying this online since the 90s. I was the first, if in my opinion, maybe people remember this differently, I was the first one to champion the phrase, if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. It might work for somebody else. I was one of the first internet people to champion that approach. Anyway, this is a long one. I thought it would be. I'm trying to get you guys to understand that it's not as simple as what you think it is. There's not a singular answer that will answer your physical problems. What I present to you is a methodology that creates an environment for you where you can find what works for you. Out of that big, what's that word that they use when you have the little, it's a kind of art. Anyway, different pieces come together to make the big picture. And because we're so chaotically different from each other, what works for another person may not work for you. And I will not be one of those that says, this is the way it goes. This is it. I won't do that. The term that was used was that I was doing a cop-out. This is not a cop-out. This is actually my teaching style. And if you think that my teaching style is a cop-out style, you're terribly mistaken. I've crafted this style over the period of 40 years. Through a series of mistakes. You forget, or please don't forget, that I have to pick up the pieces after these people try the stuff that the experts told them. That's a huge part of where my experience comes from. I'm the one that cleans up the mess. Okay? I'm the one that cleans up the mess. So in an effort to not be one of the guys out there creating the mess, I will not give you those kind of answers. All right? Okay, so this is a brass quintet gig tonight. Christmas music, obviously. I am going to post this on Wednesday. I have another one I wanted to post about me. I've already uploaded it about how I got into the Ed Gerlach band, but I think I'll post this one. I'll post that one next week because people need to hear this one this week. Okay? So, anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope I've made my position on these things more clear. I hope you understand. I hope you don't take my position offense. I hope there's no offense. I hope you don't take it personal. This is my teaching style. It's not a cop-out. This is my teaching style and it works. But I will not do this shooting in the dark stuff where I can't possibly know anything about you, but I'll be the expert about what you need to do. I won't do that. You know, the thing is, I sell books, right? Now, I do believe that my books work for about 90% of all trumpet players. But I've had students myself that I don't give my books. Why? Because the way they play is so extremely different. My books would screw them up. Now, how do I know this? Well, from experience. I know this from experience. And I won't repeat that kind of mistake. That's the nice thing about taking lessons with somebody or listening to a video of somebody that's been teaching for 40 years. I'm coming up on my 40-year anniversary. How cool is that? I should do something like to celebrate, right? 40-year anniversary teaching trumpet lessons. That's awesome. I'm just so happy to say that. Right? That's just so awesome. 40 years. And yes, I've learned a lot along the way. This teaching trumpet, this is my passion. I have more of a passion for teaching trumpet than I do for performing. I enjoy performing. But the reason I enjoy performing is because it gives me a better context to teach from. I'm a good performer. I'm one of the top trumpet players in Houston, have been for 30 years now. I say one of, there's no such thing as the very best. I will never look at myself that way. Some people think that about me. And then some people say stuff like that and they don't actually mean it, but there are some people I believe actually think I'm the best player in town. But what they mean is, when they say that, is I'm their favorite. Anyway, I better get over there. How much time do I have? I've got 45 minutes to get set up. That's plenty of time. I'm only a couple blocks away. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you guys. And I just hope that this sinks in. I really do. Okay? All right. Well, thank you. God bless you. See you on the next video.